My girlfriend said, "I need a break to figure out if I still have feelings for my ex." I texted back, "Take your time." Then I packed her drawer, changed my routine, and let her watch my life improve from the outside. When she texted, I made a mistake. Original post. I, 29 male, had been with Danielle, 27, for 2 years and 4 months when she sat down across from me at our kitchen table on an ordinary Tuesday evening, folded her hands like she was about to give a business presentation, and told me she needed a break to figure out if she still had feelings for her ex, a guy named Marcus who had drifted back into her life after running into her at a mutual friend's going-away party 3 weeks earlier. I remember the fluorescent light above the stove was buzzing faintly. I remember the bowl of fruit on the counter and the half-finished candle on the windowsill. I remember every detail of that room because my brain burned it in like a brand, the way it does when your whole world pivots on a single sentence. She said it carefully, the way people say things they've been rehearsing in the shower. She said she wasn't ending things, she just needed space to process her feelings, and she hoped I'd understand, and that she valued what we had, and that this wasn't about me. That last part, "this isn't about me," hit differently than she probably intended. Of course it wasn't about me. It was about him. She just needed me to wait patiently while she figured out whether some other man was more worth her time. I sat there for a moment that felt much longer than it actually was. I didn't cry. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't ask her to reconsider or beg her to think about what we'd built or remind her of the weekend trip we had planned for October. I just nodded slowly, looked at her across the table, and said, very quietly, "Okay, take your time." She seemed almost surprised by that. Maybe she expected me to fight for it. Maybe she expected the kind of dramatic emotional scene that would let her feel like the reasonable one by comparison. But I didn't give her that. I excused myself, said I needed some air, and went for a long walk around the neighborhood while she sat in the apartment we'd shared for the past 11 months. By the time I came back, she had already packed a bag and was staying at her friend Priya's place. She kissed me on the cheek before she left and said she'd be in touch. I closed the door behind her and stood in the hallway for about 30 seconds. Then I went to the bedroom and got a cardboard box from the closet. I packed her drawer that night. Not out of spite, not in a rage, just with a kind of calm deliberateness that surprised even me. Her face moisturizer, her spare phone charger, the little dish she kept her rings in, a hoodie she'd borrowed from me 2 summers ago that technically still smelled like both of us. I folded everything neatly and set the box near the front door. I didn't text her about it. I didn't need to announce it. The box being there said everything that needed saying. Because the moment Danielle asked for a break to figure out her feelings for another man, she'd made a choice, even if she was dressing it up in the language of confusion and personal growth. And I decided right then that I was going to respond to that choice by making one of my own. I was going to stop existing in a holding pattern waiting for her verdict, and I was going to start building something I'd been quietly neglecting for 2 years without even fully realizing it. Myself. The first week was honestly the hardest, not because I missed her every second, though some moments were genuinely painful, but because the apartment felt weirdly, echoingly empty in ways I hadn't anticipated. Her presence had filled so much space without me noticing. The shows she'd queue up, the way she hummed while making coffee, the sound of her getting ready in the morning. All of that was just gone, but I channeled the discomfort into motion. I signed up for a 6 a.m. running group that met at the park 3 blocks from my building, something I'd been meaning to do for nearly a year. I went to the first session barely able to run 2 miles without stopping. I came home sweat-drenched and depleted and absolutely clear-headed in a way I hadn't felt in months. I went back the next morning, and the morning after that. I also called my buddy Derek, who'd been inviting me to his Thursday night poker games for basically the entire duration of my relationship with Danielle, invitations I'd politely declined because she'd never liked the idea of me being out on weeknights. I showed up the following Thursday with a 6-pack of craft beer and a willingness to lose money and just laugh about it. And I stayed until almost midnight, and it was the most fun I'd had in longer than I could immediately name. Derek texted me the next morning. "Dude, you seem different. Like you again. Glad you came." I stared at that text for a while. Like you again. I hadn't even noticed I'd stopped being like myself. That's the thing about slow drift. You don't feel it happening. You just one day realize you've been accommodating someone else's discomfort at the expense of your own vitality, and you've been doing it so gradually that it felt like love. I started cooking again, seriously cooking, not just throwing something together because we needed to eat. I went to the farmer's market on Saturday mornings and came home with things I had to look up how to use. I made sourdough from scratch. I signed up for a pottery class on Wednesday evenings at the Community Arts Center, something I'd clocked on a flyer months ago and immediately dismissed as not something I have time for. I had time for it now. I wasn't just filling the hours, either. I was genuinely, almost embarrassingly into it. The instructor, a quiet woman named Sylvia who had been teaching for over 20 years, told me after the third class that I had good hands for it. I went home and felt more proud of that than I'd felt about anything in recent memory. About 3 weeks into all of this, Danielle started watching my Instagram stories. She'd gone from not being on my close friends list anyway to suddenly appearing in the viewer list, consistently, every single story. I noticed it, but didn't react to it. I just kept posting. The Saturday market haul, the running group at dawn with the city looking gold behind us, a photo of the lopsided ceramic mug I'd made in pottery that I was inexplicably proud of, a short video at Derek's birthday cookout, where I was genuinely laughing at something someone had said just off camera. I wasn't performing. I wasn't curating a heartbreak recovery narrative for her benefit. I was just living, and she was watching from the outside. And I think that was probably more effective than anything I could have deliberately staged, because there's no faking the quality of light in a person's eyes when they're actually okay. At week 5, she texted me. Not the big text, a small one. Hey, how are you doing? I waited a day and a half to respond, not as a game, but because I genuinely needed to think about what I wanted to say and how much of myself I was willing to offer. I replied, really well, actually. Hope you're good. She sent back a string of updates about her life, a little too detailed, a little too eager, the way people talk when they're trying to gauge whether a door is still open. I kept my responses short and warm and non-inviting. A few days later, she called. I let it go to voicemail. She left a message that started with, I've been doing a lot of thinking, and ended with, I think I made a mistake. I sat with that voicemail for a long time. I want to be honest here, because the honest version is more useful than the triumphant one. Part of me still loved her. Part of me wanted to call back immediately and say, yes, come home, let's forget the whole thing. That part of me was real, and it was loud, and I'm not going to pretend it wasn't. But there was another part of me, newer and quieter, but somehow more solid, that looked at those 6 weeks of running and pottery and Saturday mornings and late Thursday nights with friends and asked a simple question. Do I actually want to go back to the version of myself that existed before she sat down at that table? And the answer was no. Not because she was a villain. She wasn't. She was a person who got confused and handled it badly, the way most people handle confusion badly. But the version of me that had quietly shrunk himself into a shape that fit her preferences without ever naming the cost. I didn't want to return to him. He'd been disappearing without either of us noticing, and her walking out that door had accidentally saved him. I called her back 2 days later. I was kind. I told her I appreciated her honesty about what she was feeling and that I understood it had probably been a confusing time. I told her that I'd done a lot of my own thinking and that I didn't think returning to where we'd been was the right move for me. She got quiet. Then she asked if there was any chance, down the road, some different version of things. I thought about it genuinely before I answered. I said maybe, but not now, and not without both of us being honest about what we actually need instead of just what's comfortable. She cried a little. I felt the weight of that and didn't look away from it. We ended the call on decent terms, which felt like the best possible outcome. That was 4 months ago. I'm still running, still doing pottery, still at Derek's poker nights. I met someone recently, a woman named Cassandra who I talked to for 2 hours at a gallery opening I almost didn't go to, and I don't know what that is yet, but I know I showed up to it as the clearer version of myself, and that matters in ways I'm still learning to measure. I got a promotion at work last month, partly because I'd stopped spending mental energy managing someone else's emotional weather and had redirected it toward things that actually moved my career forward. My apartment feels like mine again. My mornings feel like mine again. I feel, in a way that's difficult to fully articulate, like I finally came back from somewhere I didn't know I'd gone. If you're in something similar right now, someone asking you to wait while they figure out if you're enough, I'm not going to tell you what to do. But I will tell you that take your time can be the most powerful thing you ever say, if you mean it about yourself as much as you mean it about them. Take your time. Take it back. Fill it with something worth having. And then see what's left and what you even still want. Once the smoke has cleared and you can finally see your own face again.